Thank you very much for coming along here today. We greatly appreciate it. Aontú is committed to farmers throughout the country. We're committed to developing a balanced regional economy in this society. And there's two major problems happening currently in this country around farming. First of all, farmers' incomes are falling at an enormous rate. Across all farming sectors, farmers' income fell by 57% last year, which is an incredible situation. And if it were happening in any other sector, it would be front page news on a regular basis. It would be consuming the Dáil in terms of debate. Right now, most farmers around the country are actually earning an income less than the minimum wage per hour. Indeed, Teagasc have said that a third of farmers are actually making a loss. They're going into poverty currently. A third of farmers are only making a living because somebody is working off the farm at the moment. And another third of farmers are just about making a living because of the fact that prices are so low. So we in Aontú want to make sure, first of all, that farmers can make a living. That's really, really important to ourselves. One of the ways that we seek to do that is to make sure that we completely reform the food market. And the food market is incredibly distorted in Ireland currently. We have a situation where there are three main elements to the food supply chain: farmers, food processors, and supermarkets. But the final two elements, the food processors and the supermarkets, are making enormous profits, and they're squeezing the farmers for every cent that they can get. This is called an oligopoly in economic terms. And in most countries, the first thing that would happen would be there would be a competition authority that would actually check the power of the food processors and the supermarkets. But that's not happening in Ireland. Indeed, we in Aontú have brought in a bill called the Beef Equitable Price Bill, and that bill seeks to put a floor under the price of production. And that floor would make sure that factories could not force the price of production of beef below the cost of production. And that would have been a major boost to farmers, so that we have a situation whereby farmers are able to earn a living. It's an incredible situation that just a couple of years ago, factories were forced to go to farmers were forced to go to factory gates to protest because the factories were forcing the price below the cost of production. Those same factories were earning hundreds of millions of euros of profit, and they were paying tax, often offshore, at rates of about 2%. And that is an incredible situation. It's happening in beef, it's happening in pigs, sheep, and poultry as well. And the way to reform this market is a proper competition authority. So we in Aontú, first of all, want to make sure that we put a floor under the price of production of food for a 2-year emergency period to stop food processors pushing the price of products below the cost of production. And we want to see a proper competition authority that actually checks the power of the factories and the supermarkets and makes sure that profit lands in the farmers as well. We also want to see a situation in this country where we have investment in our rural and regional areas. Incredibly, currently, we have a system whereby Ireland is turning into a city-state. People are commuting on a daily basis from Ulster, Connacht and Munster into Dublin. We have a situation whereby people are spending 3 hours trying to get in and out of work on a daily basis, and that's torture for many families. Young people, because of the economy, are forced to go to Dublin typically to get a university-type job, but because house prices are so dear in Dublin, they can't live in Dublin, they have to live 30 or 40 miles away. That's having an enormous stress economically on them, it's having an enormous stress on their families, and it's also having an enormous stress on the environment as well. So we want to rebalance the society. We want to stop Ireland developing into a city-state. The big project that we're talking about in terms of that is the development of an international class city on the west coast of this country. That international class city would see the front loading of infrastructure to draw down investment so that it would then become recognizable as a place to invest internationally. It would become a counterweight to Dublin, and as a result it would allow for better spatial development of our country as well. We also want to see far more investments in terms of infrastructure. For if you build infrastructure, you'll see enterprise and jobs locate where that infrastructure is, and then you'll see the population locate there as well. We want to see a border innovation zone. The border has obviously been hamstrung significantly from economic development because of the troubles first and foremost, and the existence of the border. So we want to see significant investment going into the border area so that we can have much more jobs created in that space. And we also want to see a derogation of European grant funding laws so that we can actually provide more grants into that area for jobs to develop. We want to see projects such as Waterford Airport be developed. We want to see projects such as the Western Corridor be developed. We need a government that can see beyond the M50, and right now we don't have a government that can see beyond the M50. Most of the government currently is very, very Dublin focused. Indeed, we had a constituency in the last Dáil, incredibly, where all 4 Dublin TDs in that constituency were ministers, and yet there were 10 counties on the western seaboard that had no ministers at all. Aontú has stood with farmers over the last number of years. We've opposed the Mercosur deal. Under our watch, it would not happen. We would oppose any culling of the national herd. Now, it just strikes me as really ironic in terms of the national herd, because the government's policies are actually forcing farmers to stock at higher levels due to the fact that there's so little profit in it for farmers. And as a result, then the government are turning around at the same time and saying to farmers that they're actually looking to reduce the level of money coming in relation to that. We want to stand against the Green Party, and we think that the Green Party has done great damage in government in the last while. The Green Party, I believe, have targeted farmers in many ways in relation to the work that they're doing. The Climate Action Bill, Aontú was the only political party that opposed the Climate Action Bill. Even Sinn Féin supported it at the time, and that Climate Action Bill embedded some of the stock figures that relate to farming in legislation. We oppose the banning of turf sales at the moment. The idea that you ban turf sales in the middle of a cost of living crisis where people are struggling in relation to fuel is absolutely wrong as well. And we want to see increased supports for farmers. Under the BWS and the SCEP, Aontú wants to see supports increased to €300 per suckler cow and €37 per ewe. We want to see the tillage survival scheme payment up to €250 per hectare, and a tillage expansion scheme of €400 per hectare as well. We want to see CAP funding increased, but this is really important. CAP funding has to be focused on production, and that's really key. We also want to see funding for sure in terms of environmental responsibilities that farmers have to the land, but it's necessary the CAP is focused on production and is properly invested in. Aontú oppose the nature restoration law, and we will make sure that in future none of the land in private use is used to achieve the government's goals in terms of the nation restoration law. And we have opposed the residential zone land tax that is the government wanted to impose on active farms. An incredible situation that you would have active farmers put into the same space as speculators and therefore taxed in the same rate. So we believe that our policies are very regional and rural Ireland focused. We believe that they would help rebalance this society that we live in, and we believe that it would allow for the family farm to earn a living in future.
If you had 3 priorities, what would you do in government?
The first priority for us is